Good evening and welcome to the Carnegie Town Hall. This meeting of the City Planning Commission will begin with a few introductory remarks. The City of Sioux Falls Planning Commission serves as an advisory board to the City Council. It is the responsibility of the Planning Commission to consider and make recommendations on land use and zoning matters. Actions taken tonight on conditional use permits are final unless appealed to the City Council in writing within 5 days. And any actions taken tonight on final development plans or minor amendments are final. Any recommendations made on preliminary subdivision plan requests tonight will be referred to Commission move to the podium microphone, identify themselves, and state their address for the record. Please limit your comments to less than 5 minutes. And as a courtesy to everyone here tonight, we ask that you either turn off or silence your electronic devices. This meeting is being televised on Channel 16 and will be rebroadcast Saturday at 10 a.m., Tuesday at 7 p.m., Wednesday at 1 a.m. Thank you for your cooperation.
Test? Oh, okay. You guys have volume?
Test. Test. This one's working.
Okay.
Test.
Hello?
I'm good.
Okay, maybe we're home here. Can you hear me now?
All right, well, I apologize for the technical difficulties tonight. We'll, if we have problems with the microphones, we'll just ask you to talk loudly. Meredith, if you wanted to introduce the agenda.
Shall I read the introductory remarks?
Yes, please.
Good evening and welcome to Carnegie Town Hall. I call to order this regular meeting of the City Planning Commission will begin with a few introductory remarks. The City of Sioux Falls Planning Commission serves as an advisory board to the City Council on land use and zoning matters. Action taken tonight on rezoning requests, major amendments, future land use amendments, and ordinance amendments will be referred to the City Council for a public hearing on Tuesday, July 6th, 2010 at 7 p.m. in this same Carnegie Town Hall. Action taken on preliminary subdivision plans will be referred to the City Council for action on Monday, June 21st, 2010, unless associated with a rezoning request, which then would be heard by the City Council on Tuesday, July 6th, 2010. Action taken tonight on conditional use permits are final unless appealed to City Council, and any action taken tonight on final development plans or minor amendments is final. At this time, the Planning Commission will approve the consent agenda and regular agendas. In order to place certain non-controversial items on the Commission's consent agenda, planning staff and the Planning Commission apply the following criteria. First, the request conforms with the Shape Sioux Falls 2035 Comprehensive Plan. Second, planning staff recommends approval of the request. Third, there are no audience members present or written comments received in opposition to the request. And fourth, the application meets all conditions and requirements of the ordinance. The consent agenda items are: number 1, approval of the May 5th, 2010 minutes of the regular meeting. Item 2, plats. Item 3 is number 2010-05-03, a conditional use permit in the S Institutional District to allow expansion of a non-conforming use at 1709 South Summit Avenue. Item 4, number 2010-04, is a final development plan in some sub-area A of the Eastern Hills Plan Development District to construct fourplex residential buildings at East 53rd Street and South Banyan Avenue. And finally, item number 5, number 2010-05-06, is a final development plan in sub-area A of the Diamond Village Plan Development District to construct fourplex residential buildings at East 77th Street and South Tomar Road. Is there anyone in the audience tonight that has an objection to the items that are contained in the consent agenda? Seeing none, is there any objection from members of the Planning Commission to the items that are contained in the consent agenda? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed, same sign. The consent agenda is approved. If your item was on the consent agenda, you're free to leave. The next item is the approval of the regular agenda. Is there a motion to approve the regular agenda?
So,
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Dave Loveland, and I will be representing several items tonight, but I did want to let you know that we did receive a request right before the meeting that item number 7 be deferred.
Okay. Having heard that from David, is there a motion to approve the regular agenda?
Mr. Chair, I move we accept the regular agenda with deferred.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of the regular agenda signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed, same sign. The regular agenda is approved. For the regular agenda, the following normal public hearing procedure will be followed by first requesting planning staff to present a brief report on each item. Second, the petitioner will be requested to come forward to make a statement or answer questions. After the petitioner, anyone from the audience who wishes to address a particular agenda item shall be recognized. Then the Planning Commission will discuss the matter and take appropriate action. We ask that anyone addressing the Commission other than staff move to the podium, identify themselves for the record, and as a courtesy to everyone here tonight, we ask that you either turn off your cell phones or silence your cell phone. This meeting is being televised on Channel 16. Thank you for your cooperation. David, I believe the first item is number 6.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 6 is petition number 2010-05-01, a rezone from the RS1 residential district to the O office district for allowed uses at 4324 South Minnesota Avenue. The applicant is Jeff Bolt with Sayer Associates, representing Jeffrey Browen with the Advanced Eye Care. The purpose of the request is to rezone the subject parcel to allow an expansion of the existing office building just on the parcel to the north. The area is about 1/4 acre in size. As I noted, existing zoning is RS1 residential. The existing land use is vacant. And abutting zoning and land uses to the north is the O office district with compatibility rating of 5. To the south, east, and west are all RS1 residential districts with compatibility ratings of 4. The O office district requires a 25-foot front yard setback, a 10-foot side yard setback, and a 0-foot rear yard setback, and building height is limited to 35 feet. A new curb cut will be granted by the Public Works Office onto Minnesota Avenue, and no transit stops currently exist within 600 feet of the subject property. The applicant's requesting the zoning of a small parcel of a quarter acre to the O Office District to allow for an expansion of the existing advanced eye care building to the north. The plan indicates that an additional parking lot will be constructed on-site for staff parking in order to free up the main lot for patients. In addition, the drive to be constructed will be a shared access between the proposed office development to the north and the future potential for a single-family home on the remainder of the existing lot. The applicants anticipate keeping a substantial portion of the existing woodland district intact. The applicants have also held discussions with adjacent property owners regarding the proposal and should be prepared to provide further information at the public hearing. I believe that you have all received packets from both the applicant and from some of the neighbors with pertinent information included. As of the drafting of this report, you'll note that in the report it says, as of the drafting of the report, we had not yet received any comments or questions, but obviously that subsequently changed. So, but from our standpoint, because the subject application reflects a parcel ownership and is compatible with surrounding properties, we are recommending approval of the rezoning. And that concludes staff report.
Thank you, David. Any questions for staff?
Mr. Chair?
Any?
David, will they be asking for a new curb cut there? There is a curb cut there.
Actually, I believe it's the continuation of the existing curb cut that on that parcel. So that Public Works is allowing that to
Minnesota
remain.
Avenue used to be considered a state highway. Is that no longer considered a state highway?
Well, I believe it's still signed as a state highway. I think what changed was a maintenance agreement that maybe Jeff can elaborate on, but it's just that the city.
So there won't be a new curb cut. They'll use the existing curb cut.
That's correct.
Thank you, David.
Mr. Chair. Dave,
Yes.
I think this is working now.
Okay.
Question with respect to the potential for a single-family home on the remainder of the existing site.
Yep.
Now, the only thing that would be rezoned from residential would be just that plot that's outlined.
Yeah, you can
And-
see the line that Steve's actually tracing that right now on your screens, where that line will go. So what they'll have to do is they'll have to combine that portion of the parcel with the property to the north into what is called a tax ID parcel from the county. That would allow them to get a building permit. It would be considered then one lot, and then the remainder of the lot would be considered a separate lot. And because it'd be zoned RS1, then they could still build their single-family home.
And where that check mark is the future potential for a single-family home, because that's the remainder of the lot that's still
correct.
residential.
Yep, that's correct.
Thank you.
David, Mr. Chair, how old is that building that's currently there? That was just done in the last 3 years, wasn't it?
Yeah, the parcel to the north was zoned for office in 2000, in the year 2000. I'm not sure exactly when that building permit, the applicant may be able to answer that question.
Okay, thank you.
Dave, Steve, can you go back to the slide previous to this? I'm sorry, keep going. Right here. So it appears that already there's, where this existing residential lot's going to be, has already been cleared. Is that correct?
Portions of it, yeah, it looks like, I'm not sure if it's been cleared or was already already
Sure.
open space, but, yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for David?
One other question. This is for a change in zoning.
Yes.
They have presented a plan that they plan to do. But it's not really something we can put any stipulations on. In other words, if we change the zoning, they might build it as outlined, but they're under no obligation
That's
to.
correct. Zoning, you cannot stipulate zoning. The plan that's why, in your titles, when you see rezoning on your agendas, that's why it says for allowed uses. This is what they're discussing right now, but there's not necessarily a control that they would be allowed to do whatever would be allowed in the office district as long as it met the setbacks, the height limitations, those things. So,
Thank you, Dave.
yep.
Any other questions for David?
Okay.
Thank you, David. Is the petitioner here this evening?
My name's Jeff Bolt. I'm with Sayer Associates, civil engineers here in Sioux Falls.
Jeff, anything you'd like to add to the staff report?
Maybe just some background. We were involved with this project originally, did survey and civil design work, and have done some preliminary survey work on the project thus far. And there are some additional comments, if I may defer to Dave Van Nieuwenhuizen with Fee Construction.
Sure.
Good evening. Dave Van Nieuwenhuizen, Fegan Construction. Do you need my address? 1600 East 39th Street North. I'm here representing Dr. Brown. I'm the architect for the original project and the proposed project as well. Dr. Brown built the facility in 2005. He purchased that property shortly before that, I think in 2004. And you know, it's a pretty unique site in the city of Sioux Falls, and I think he's received a number of compliments on what he did on that existing site. It's a very challenging site. It's about 40 feet of grade difference from one corner to the other, and on this secondary site, which you purchased this last year, I believe, from one corner, the northwest corner, to the far extreme southeast corner, there's over 45 feet of grade difference. So we're very limited on what we can do. Really, Dr. Brown would like to add about 1,800 square feet to his existing building, and that would allow him to better service his existing customers. And then the parking that's associated with that is the minimum required for a medical office facility expansion like this, 9 parking stalls. And what he would do is move his staff over to that new parking lot so that frees up some space in his existing parking lot for customers. So the entrance off of Minnesota Avenue would be for staff and for the residential use. It would be a combined access. Dr. Brown intends to build his home up on top on the proposed home site up there. The timing on that is up in the air a little bit. We did hold our neighborhood meeting on May 25th, and we invited the immediate neighbors surrounding this facility, the neighbors to the north, which is the Aspen Vistas, the old Northlander building. The neighbor to the south, which really there's only one adjoining neighbor to the south, because Harple Avenue cuts across, and there's only one adjoining neighbor. And then the neighbors immediately across Minnesota Avenue to the west. We did have 6 people attend that meeting, and we fielded a number of questions and concerns. I think the biggest concern that we fielded from that meeting was the concern about traffic flow and the speed of traffic on Minnesota Avenue. There are some concerns about removing trees on the site again. And I think if you can go back to the proposed development, and the site plan, of course, is preliminary until we get rezoning approved, but this is what is intended, be an 1,800 square foot building addition. Because the grade is such that it drops off dramatically, we have to put in some retaining walls like we did before. And then, as you can see, we're trying to maintain as much existing vegetation along Minnesota Avenue in that 25-foot setback as possible. And so another up point about the existing vegetation, we tried to maintain as much up against the south property line without taking any of that away as possible. So we're trying to maintain that existing drive that goes up to the home site, and that is the dashed line shown on that drawing. So all things in consideration, trying to be a good steward of this site. This is as good as we can do, I guess, with the existing grades. One concern that was brought forward by one of the neighbors was the fact that his sign is left on overnight. And Dr. Brown has met with that neighbor outside of that meeting, and they've come to a cooperative effort of shutting off that sign from 10 p.m. till 6 a.m. And the neighbors seem to be very much appreciative of that. There were some concerns about headlights from cars as they exit the existing driveway, and then also exiting the proposed new entrance, or the entrance that's shared with the residential site. Just trying to be upfront about that as well. So really, it's just an extension of his existing facility. He's done a really nice job of maintaining that facility. I think it's a compliment to that site, and can I answer any questions?
Thank you, Dave. Any questions for Dave?
Mr. Chair, Dave, on the sign, I had a question about, with the addition, you're not going to be, or are you going to be putting up a new sign?
He does not
bigger
plan to
sign,
put, he does
using
not
the
plan to put
existing
up
one?
any additional signage, no.
And-
Other than maybe a sign that says staff entrance only to limit people coming in and out of there.
That would be
Because
by
it's-
the curb
the
cut.
intention is just to have staff use that parking lot.
But your electronic sign isn't going to be
That will not
moved
be
and
changed,
larger?
no.
Okay. In the back of your building, the existing building right now, with the retaining wall and the cedar fence, that is going to stay as is?
That'll
is gonna be
stay
part of
as
this
is,
project?
as exists today. We'll tie into that on the south side of his existing building to take grade to a point where we can put a new building addition on the south side of that building. But yeah, as it sits on the back side of his building, that will not be changed.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dave?
Mr. Chair? Dave?
Yes, sir.
Two questions. One is, what are the, and maybe you don't know this, but what are the hours of operation of the eye clinic?
You know, I had those written down, so I hope you don't mind me looking at my notes here. Monday and Thursday, they're open from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And they are open from 8 to noon on Saturday. That's his hours of operation.
Okay, thank you there. And secondly, on the south side of the property, where the proposed driveway is that would serve both the new parking lot and the proposed new house up in the cleared area, what's the grade change between that driveway and that house to the south?
Just shooting from the hip about 35 or 40 feet.
Okay, thank you very much.
Pretty close. Yep.
Any other questions for Dave?
Mr. Chair, David, at the neighborhood meeting, when you were done, were all 6 people in agreement with what Doctor wanted to do here?
I wouldn't say they were in agreement. The people that attended, I think, were very concerned about the traffic speed on Minnesota Avenue, and that was addressed. But really, that's a city traffic department issue. And Dr. Brown is not opposed to, and he would probably lead the effort to reduce the speed limit on Minnesota Avenue. But you know, again, that's up to the city. As far as the vegetation is concerned, I think that was the biggest thing, other than the traffic. Trying to maintain as much of the existing vegetation as possible. If it's not able to, Dr. Brown has certainly talked about replacing some vegetation as necessary in order to maintain a proper buffer.
David, have you been made aware that, I'm looking at a deal here, 25 neighbors have signed I'm not going to say it's a petition not to grant this zoning?
I'm aware there is opposition. I'm not aware of the petition itself. I have not seen it.
I'm
I've
not
heard,
sure if it is a petition, but
Okay.
it's an informational letter to us.
I've heard kind of through the grapevine that there has been some misrepresentation of what's proposed for the site when that was brought around to some neighbors. So that's just some of the knowledge that I have of it. So
Does Doctor plan on speaking to us tonight?
he certainly will.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, David.
Anything else?
Anything else for Dave? It's not, thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jeff Brown. I'm the owner of Advanced Eye Care and one of the optometrists. Been practicing here for 21 years. And Dave pretty much summarized, what my kind of plans were with the property. And I do plan on putting a home on the top, and looked at it as a great opportunity for us when it came up for sale. And so I guess I'm open for any kind of questions you guys might have for me. And
Any questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Jeff, having heard that once we rezone this, we kind of lose control over what can and can't happen to it. Are you saying publicly tonight that your intention is to add 1,800 square feet onto your existing building, make the rest of this a parking lot, and try to leave as much of the natural shrubbery as currently there on that 25 feet from your parking lot to the street?
yeah, actually, a friend of mine from way back in high school, Dudley Deffenbaugh, who's a home builder you might be familiar with. He's won Home Builder of the Year, I think, last year for both the Home Builders Association and I think the Sioux Falls Business Journal. He's involved also in the building of that 1,800 square feet. And originally I was presented with a 6,000 square feet building. And I said, that was way too big for what I was looking for. And I wanted it scaled way back. And I can 100% say that that's my only use of that property. If it's done, it's 1,800 square feet or less, if I could say it that way, for my needs. And I would put that on public record. I wouldn't have anything else in there. That's my sole, use of that property. No other intentions whatsoever.
Thank you, I appreciate you
Yeah.
saying that. I might add, I'm going to call and ask you who did your retaining wall back there. I have a retaining wall that needs to be done, and it's an unbelievable retaining wall you've got back there.
Yeah, Mr. Sayre, Richard Sayre, I think he'd be okay with me saying that. He actually comes back there and checks that. Even it was built, as I said, in July of '05 we opened, and he always comments that, what I need to look for, and it's kind of an engineering marvel, I guess, if you will, for that big of a retaining wall. So
Thank you.
it's held up well.
Thank you,
Thank
Jeff.
you.
Any other questions for Jeff? I guess not. Thank you.
That's it? Okay.
Okay, are there any members of the audience that would like to address this issue? Bob, would you come forward?
My name is Bob Shrewsbury. I live at 4300 excuse me, South Minnesota Avenue, or South Pinecone Place, directly across the street from the Eye Care Clinic. I'm representing most of the homeowners that are opposed to the rezoning of the property located at 4320 South Minnesota Avenue from residential to office. The Advanced Eye Care Clinic wants to have the property rezoned in order to build an extension on their building along with another parking lot. I, along with 24 other homeowners in and near the impacted area, oppose the rezoning request for a number of reasons. First and foremost, when our homes and townhomes were purchased, we wanted to locate into an area of town that was zoned residential so that the area would not turn into a business district with neon lights and the additional traffic and noise it would bring. Then and now we are concerned with our property values. Allowing the area to be rezoned would compromise the property values even more. Further, we wanted to locate into an area that had substantial trees, foliage, wildlife, and a quiet beauty to the surrounding landscape. We get pleasure each day from the wooded area in which we live, and we wish to keep it that way. Each of us has personal reasons for living in this area, but we all share a common desire, which is to provide a safe and peaceful area for our families. The Eye Clinic had a neighborhood meeting recently in which 5 households were represented. There may have been 6 people, but 5 households were represented. 3 households were in favor of the project and 2 were opposed. After canvassing the entire impacted area, there were, as represented by the signatures on the petition each of you has, an overwhelming majority expressing their desire to keep their property residential and to deny the zoning request. There are 5 households whose property is directly across Minnesota Avenue to the west from the proposed rezoning, and these would experience the most severe impact. All 5 households oppose the rezoning. Denying the rezoning request will not harm the business interest of the clinic. However, it would hurt each of the lifestyles of the 25 persons that have signed the rezoning petition. In each household, only 1 signature was obtained, but most households have spouses and family members who are also strongly opposed. I have no doubt that Dr. Brown is a good man. He and his associates have chosen to locate their homes in a residential area, a peaceful area with trees, foliage, and a natural habitat for wildlife. He has chosen to live away from a business structure and a parking lot. We wish the same for our families and encourage the commission to deny the request. Thank you.
Hold on for a second, Bob.
Yes.
Any questions for Bob?
Meredith, Mr. Shrewsbury, you're cognizant of the fact that whoever owns that property can tear out every single tree on that lot if they choose to, whether they're going to build a house there or they're going to clear it for a parking lot, but it's their property and they can do with it whatever they desire.
I'm aware
So
of it.
nobody needs to maintain that vegetation other than it would be to their benefit or to the benefit of their neighbors.
I'm aware of that.
Okay.
Any other questions for Bob?
Mr. Chair, Bob, was there anything said tonight with talking to Dr. Brown as far as trying to leave as much foliage as he can between that parking lot and the street that might help soften this a little bit for you and the neighbors?
We know that substantial trees and foliage has to be removed. That much we do know. To what extent we're not been presented with any material.
Okay, thank you, Bob.
Okay.
Any other questions for Bob? I guess not. Thank you, Bob. Is there anyone else in the audience tonight that would like to address this issue?
Hello, my name is Craig Markart. My address is 4304 South Pinecone Place. I live directly to the west immediately to the west of the proposed parking lot that is planned per the item number 6. I also own the vacant lot that is addressed at 500 South Bachelor Lane that corners up to Bachelor Lane and Minnesota Avenue as well. I purchased that lot so I could extend my backyard and enjoy the foliage of that backyard as well. Based on the proposal that I see, it seems that that parking lot is my largest objection that I have. The placement of that parking lot will approximately put the level of the surface of that parking lot at approximately the second floor height of my home. My home sits down the valley further than that proposed parking lot, and that virtually would be almost at the same height as the second floor height of my home. I've looked at my lot, and if I were to place a 6-foot privacy fence along Minnesota Avenue, it seems that the height of that parking lot would be actually above the height of that 6-foot privacy fence, therefore allowing me zero privacy with the decreased foliage throughout the winter months, and as well as the proposed removal of foliage that would occur on that property there. I've unfortunately had foliage removed from my 500 South Bachelor Lane lot, and when I hired that crew, I asked them to just remove a slight amount of foliage, and when I came home that afternoon at 5 o'clock, everything was removed. And they said that because once they started into it, there was nothing that was salvageable. The property that is proposed to be rezoned has the exact same identical type of foliage. And so I believe that once they start cutting into that foliage, it will all most likely be removed except for a few trees that may have a diameter of 1 foot to 18 inches or so. So therefore, there will be virtually zero foliage left over. And so then I'll have a direct view of nothing but a parking lot. And so I'd be severely impacted by this. You'll see that parking lot there, I'm immediately across the street. The back of my house is. And so the building that they have built there is a beautiful structure, and I'm very pleased with what they have done already. And the proposed addition is most likely would be very pleasant as well. The parking lot is what I'm opposed to, being next to Minnesota Avenue.
Any questions for Craig?
Mr. Chair,
Sure.
Craig, can you put the photograph up? I'm just trying to get a sense of where his house is.
That is my neighbors to the north. That is, my
So your
house
house
is
faces
immediate,
to the
excuse me, that is
west.
the neighbors to the south. My house is immediately to the north, right immediately behind it.
So your house faces west?
No, that would be Mr. Shrewsbury's house that just came up. Mine is in between those two.
Oh, right there?
Right there,
Okay.
yep.
Okay. And then you also own right on the corner?
And then I also
empty
own,
lot.
yes.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Any other questions for Craig?
Mr. Chair. Mr. Marquardt, question. This photograph here, is this a current photograph, or have those trees that are shown been removed?
No, that's very current, I believe. If that check mark was removed, I could take a closer look. Yes, it looks like that is, I had wanted the thinning out of my foliage along Minnesota Avenue, just because there was noxious weeds and so on and so forth in there. And that looks like that's what it looks like today. And so they left virtually just the structural trees that were remaining.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other
Mr. Chair?
questions for Craig?
Craig, and we'll ask the engineer to come back up. Would that parking lot be at that level because you're lower
Yes.
than street level?
Yes. The grade of the land points towards the river that is to my northwest. And so everything grades down that. I can't tell you the difference in the grade, but I do know that the second floor of my home is below, or excuse me, the main floor of my home is below the road level. The Minnesota Avenue road level. And so I believe the second floor would therefore be approximately where that height of that parking lot would be. And so,
You don't feel that leaving some foliage in that 25 feet or doing some replanting in there will give you some protection for that, Craig?
I would believe that I would have to put planting in mine in order to have any protection. And so I don't believe 25 feet from the sidewalk leaves enough, because there's a section that's already bare of approximately 10 to 12 feet. I'm not sure exactly how much. And so there would be about approximately 15 to 13 feet of foliage that would be remaining from where the parking lot would begin.
Does the idea that it's a business open from 8 till 6
You know,
alleviate that for you at all?
that's an excellent question, Ken. I'm a business owner myself.
I know you are.
And I really feel for him wanting to expand his business. And I'm proud to know that he has taken such pride to know that he wanted to put that kind of a building there in the first place. So the hours of operation are not necessarily of concern to me. I think it's viewing parked cars in a parking lot out my back window when I didn't necessarily expect it, because it was a residential neighborhood.
Thank you, Craig. Appreciate your showing up.
Any other questions for Craig? I guess not. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience tonight that would like to address this item?
My name is Steve Carl. I live at 308 Harpole Drive, and my wife and I live immediately to the south. I thought I might share a little information that may help you. When the state redid Minnesota Avenue and widened it and put in the corrugated concrete, the noise level rose precipitously. It's changed it from a residential neighborhood to a business neighborhood just by the noise level. I suspect on any Monday morning at rush minute, if you'll allow that term, that if you measured the decibel level at the edge of that road, you would exceed what the town allows. If we had that in your front yard, you'd have the police haul me away. Hopefully, we can, with a group of the neighbors, adjust that speed so it matches that on Cliff Avenue, which would change things. I was somewhat curious what would happen to the eye patients leaving the clinic, because frequently people sail down Minnesota Avenue at 60, 70, or even 80 miles an hour. And I figured if somebody's grandmother who was of some political importance were to get T-boned, we'd have a solution to our speed problem. I realize you're not in the speed business, but you're in the zoning business, and we really are being encroached by businesses from the north and really from the south as well. It's changed the nature of that. Each of us have seen our home properties deteriorate with the noise level, but that's not a zoning issue, and I fully recognize that. In regards to the trees in that area, and you'll see that we have a pretty fair stretch of trees immediately adjacent to that, and I am currently getting between 6 and 10 trees marked each fall by the city that I have to take out because they all have Dutch elm disease. There are also some box elders in there that are mature and dying out, and there's some cottonwoods that are breaking off and dying out as well. So that woodlot has reached its maturity, and it's probably going to be gone for both of us regardless of what we do. I would agree with the gentleman who just spoke that when you start to clear this out, particularly if you have it done commercially as opposed to doing it by hand, which is what I've elected to do, if you have it done commercially, you're really going to lose the vast majority of it. It's not much in the way of salvageable trees. Perhaps a privacy fence bordering the parking lot would screen the parking lot at its source and higher up and solve the issue of the 6-foot fence. I personally would like zoning to put up a 25-foot sound fence and reflect the noise across the street, and then they do the same. But I mean, I think that really is the issue, is we've got a block of land between 57th and 229 that is mixed residential and commercial at this point, but is tipping toward commercial. It's got a huge traffic flow, and you all are charged with figuring out what to do with it. I suspect if we were to come back in 20 years, there won't be a house along that street, and it'll be all businesses. I'm hoping to hold out long enough to get a come and go at the corner there. But I don't mean to be facetious, but I really do think that's the issue before you is, do you really look at this block? There has not been a house sold since along the east side of Minnesota Avenue in that area since the road was widened. Several have come up, none have sold. Well, one changed hands within a family. I'm not sure you call that sold. And speaking for the family immediately to the east of this project, both of those owners are deceased. It's in the family, and they are in the process of trying to figure out what to do with it and sort of cleaning it up. And I don't think they have a voice here tonight, but I certainly don't think they have an objection. In the past, you have rezoned it so a house could be put closer to that back property line than is the normal status, and they were alive at that time and did not object. We are not opposed to this.
Say that again, Bob.
We are not opposed to this rezoning, but I would encourage you to look at this as a global issue for that particular area. And just, really at some point you're going to have to say they're all going to go, or we should stop rezoning. I think this one is relatively minor. I think they've been a very good neighbor. They've done it well. I think if the screening of the parking lot is the issue, I think maybe we can pressure them to put in a fence on their side at their cost. I mean, that's a better deal anyway. And that may protect you. I think we as a neighborhood need to do something about the speed.
Mr. Carl, I would encourage you to, I mean, I travel that stretch of land rather frequently, and I recognize that coming, from the south, it's easy to get to 50 miles an hour before you realize how fast you're traveling down there. And so whatever it takes
Well, I've
to-
spoken to the, I've spoken to the police and the fellow at the head of speed enforcement, and encouraged them to come by. They're never there. They're hanging out in places where they can sort of get you at a place where nothing's happening. If they were to come by and actually use that driveway access to that currently vacant lot, I mean, they could balance the city budget.
Jeff, do you have any recommendations of where they should go?
Not in association with this application in front of you.
Okay.
No, I realize it's a totally separate issue, but I think some of the angst that you're hearing from the neighbors is really what's happened to the neighborhood, which has nothing to do with what you have any control over.
Correct.
And your point also about once it's rezoned, if this property were to be sold, they could do anything they wanted to with it. Within the realms of that.
When you say the property to the east of this property, would that be the backyards to the houses along Vista?
No. You'll see that triangular piece is ours.
Okay.
That one.
That one there.
And our neighbors to the east, their house is up near Harple, and it's largely backyard back in there.
Thank you. I'm just trying to get a sense of.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Steve?
I do not see this impacting us in any way. I think the people across the street are rightfully the ones who are most likely to be impacted. And we're losing a good number of those trees on a regular basis, and perhaps dealing with it as a joint effort, we could clear it out, clean it up, replant it in something that we'd all would like to have in there. I went over with the city foresters and to see if there were any trees that would help with the noise. Turns out trees don't stop noise at all. Leaves or no leaves, evergreens, deciduous, doesn't matter.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? One more person, and I'll get to Jeff. Is there anyone else that would like to address this? If not, Jeff, would you like to come up and comment relative to the testimony you've heard?
Yeah, what I wanted to kind of mention first of all is with Mr. Shrewsbury, I've never met you before. We've invited you over to our meeting. Your wife came, which was nice for you to come, and Craig came as well. One thing that wasn't really mentioned was your other neighbor came, Glenn and Phyllis Jorgensen, and they're the ones that I met with after the meeting and had the sign issue, and I just immediately the very next day called them and said that's going to happen no matter what happens with the property. I'm going to leave it at 10 p.m. and it's going to start at 6, so I've eliminated that. But they're not opposed to it, and so I don't know if I heard you said all of your neighbors by you, but they told me I could use their name and say that they're not opposed, and actually invited me over for coffee twice to come over. And so I made some friends there, and it was an important thing to come to the meeting so that we could talk about those things. And I was hoping you would have come so we could have talked openly about it, as a solution. And which brings me to the next part, really, is on the petition you bring up. To the north of us, the Northlander, Carol Tweet called me this morning, Dr. Jerome Walton yesterday, Kay Lessner, all live there. fully supportive of us. I couldn't have paid them to say what they did at our meeting that you were at. They're not patients of mine. They're not friends of mine. But it was like I couldn't ask them to say more better things about our property we've done there. So I know that area hasn't signed your petition. I don't know the neighbors that you're talking about, but I do know a neighbor behind there, and I can't mention her name unless we need to, but she gave me an idea of what was brought to her by Mr. Shrewsbury, and basically said that we were going to wipe out all the trees and put in a parking lot. And I feel it's an unfair characterization. We're very, I think, good stewards of what we did there. And I think the petition itself, for me, I would like to be able to visit that if that becomes an issue. And I'd like to meet with those people, because I don't feel they're going to have a fair representation of really what we're trying to do. And that was a point for me, I guess. And then the last thing really has to do with Craig and seeing the parking lot. I'm really trying to be sensitive to everybody. I want to be a good neighbor. And I mentioned to Cindy, I know that was there. She mentioned, why did we put privet bushes up on the north side of our property that faces the Aspa Vistas? Well, our opportunity there was to put in rock, first of all. And when we met with all those people, we agreed to put up their stone that they wanted, a retaining wall, a much bigger expense for me. And as I told Cindy, instead of a privet bush, I was going to put up a 4-foot fence, and they wanted a privet bush. And they comment that they've really enjoyed that. It's a natural barrier and not a fence. And I'd be willing to work with anybody, including Mr. Shrewsbury, that lives around there, to try to address any concerns they'd have. I'm open to suggestions. I'm not the bad guy. I guess I'm kind of been made out to be. And my home, yes, does not live right there. I do live on Metal Arc Trail around the corner. But that home site, I've been up there 10 times with Dudley Deffenbaugh, with different designs and different approaches to make it better. So I don't have any, anything that would, why would I want to take out all the trees that are there? I mean, it makes no sense for me. Even if I'm going to sell that, if this would happen to somebody else who's offered already to buy it from me for a home site, I'd want it to be done. Right now, if you drive up there, it's really just mud that's been, clay that's been eroded from rain. There's nothing up there. It's bare. And I'd go in and I would put in a lot of trees. And so I feel like the trees that you're talking about, I understand your concerns on that. And I just would wish we could talk more about it. And we invited, I know him twice by phone, and after he called our office, and also by a hand-delivered letter. And if he would have come to the meeting, I think maybe things could have been different, for us. But I guess the petition for me is the thing that I just don't feel is fair. If you have names on there, we should get our petition. We didn't have time. I've been gone. I got back Tuesday. Do we get a petition ourselves from people like Carol Tweet and Dr. Walton and others? I don't know. It depends on the decision you guys have before you, I guess. So
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions for Jeff before we end testimony tonight? I guess not. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Dave, I think we've kind of decided to close testimony unless it's dramatically different than what we've already heard.
I would just like to address the screening issue.
You need to come up to the podium, though.
I'll make my comments brief. If the rezoning goes through, the parking lot has to be screened from residential property adjacent to it. So that would mean that either the existing vegetation that we plan on keeping in that 25-foot setback would have to be sufficient to properly screen, or we would be required to do a fence or a hedge or a berm to properly screen so that parking lot lights do not cross the property line at a height of 4 feet above the parking lot. So, and that would have to be on Dr. Brown's property. That's part of the zoning ordinance.
Right.
So,
Any questions for Dave? Okay, thank you. Bob, one more closing comment here.
I just want to make a couple of comments on the petition. If you notice the statistical breakout, there are 3 people that were in fact in favor, and those people are listed also. The 4th person is not opposed to it, and that also was mentioned as well. As far as being able to go to the neighborhood meeting, I had to work that night and I was unable to go to the meeting. I'm not aware of any personal phone calls ever made to me by Dr. Brown's office to meet with him privately or anything like that. So I just want to kind of set the record straight if I might.
Okay, any questions for Bob? Okay, thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Okay. I would entertain a motion
Mr. Chair.
relative to this item.
I would make the motion to approve the rezoning.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, I'd second that.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Well, I'd certainly like to discuss it a little bit.
This is your chance.
Whenever I see a neighborhood coming out in support against something, I really try to pay pretty close attention to that. I think when we get people come up and have enough courage to come up here and speak on both sides of the issue, I think it takes some pretty serious consideration. I'm just wrestling with trying to make this comfortable for everybody. Having said that, I'm leaning towards supporting the doctor on this particular situation. I think that what I've heard tonight, I think he's publicly kind of said, look, I'm going to try to do what I can to maintain the foliage like it is, either add to it or improve it. I'm not sure of the zoning laws as far as this parking lot, Craig, but I think either there's got to be some protection there, he's going to have to fence it. I know when there is a zoning, particular residential zoning, and somebody wants to change that, and people have made an effort, purchased property based on, hey, what's it zoned? And then issues like this come up where there's a rezone, it can really cause some conflict. If he were looking to rezone that whole piece of ground, I can assure you I would not, I can't speak for anybody else, I would not be in support of that. I think putting that addition onto his building and doing a parking lot and doing it nicely like I think he might do, I kind of see it as a benefit right there. I know you guys probably don't agree with that. I'm not sure how long I might be on this commission, but if somebody were coming in there to rezone that whole thing to office, it certainly wouldn't be something I would support. I'd be supporting you guys on that. But having said that, I hope some of the things that he's willing to do will soften it for you guys if we do pass that.
Anyone else? Any more discussion?
Mr. Chair, Kenny, I'd agree with you that if he was coming in to zone that whole parcel, I would agree. But this front portion with, as you said, the good faith effort that he said publicly, I feel that the amount of disturbance that this parking lot and building addition is going to cause by this zoning change, I think will be minimized. Thank you.
Mike, I think there's a good chance if he follows through with some of the things, he might end up building his personal residence up there. And it'd certainly be a nice addition, I think, up there for the whole neighborhood.
Any more discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion to approve item number 6 signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Okay, item number 7. David, you said that's deferred. Have we had that item deferred in the past?
Yes, we have. Actually, the petition has been deferred a number of times since it was first submitted 6 months ago.
Okay. Do we have an end in sight? with that.
Is the applicant here this evening? Could you speak to that, please?
Chris Torkelson, 1408 West Waterstone Drive, here on behalf of Southeastern Behavioral Healthcare and Lloyd Companies. There is an end in sight. We're very hopeful there's an end in sight. Unfortunately, this project is tied up with Bank of America, and we're in negotiations. We've been in negotiations for a long time. It's been a real struggle, and I've apologized to staff up and down for deferring, but I don't feel I can move forward on a conditional use pending negotiations at this time. So we're very hopeful that we can come to agreement even within the next couple of weeks here. So I'm hopeful that I'm back.
So you'll keep the staff apprised of what's going on?
Yeah, as much information as they want, or how often they want me to contact them, I'd be more than happy to do that.
Okay.
So,
Thank you, Chris.
thank you.
Chris, the existing building is in foreclosure, is that our
Correct.
understanding?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Okay, staff report, item number 8.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. My name is Steve Randall. I'll be representing this item and others this evening. Now, the application is in a existing commercial center called Dakota Town Center. We have a conditional use permit that's being applied for by Ferris Joseph Jr., and the owner of the property is Don Dunham. Conditional use application is to request approval to allow an on-site malt beverage sale establishment. The applicant has presented a floor plan. The site plan indicates the location within the building, and shared parking is located between the building and the street. There are other businesses in the area. Shared parking shares the access from the street with a bank and a restaurant, and you can see those on the site plan. We've given a compatibility rating of 4 to the subject property simply because there is a lower intensity use to the north, the cemetery, and in the compatibility rating of 4, we would like to make sure that there is no severe impact of the subject property on that lower intensity use. We'd primarily be looking at the use in terms of orientation of traffic, noise, litter, things like that. As we look at the plan, we have a seating plan of 5,140 square foot tenant space, seating for approximately 156 people, and there's a stage included, along with a kitchen. The applicant should be prepared this evening to address the use of the facility in terms of the occupants, tenants, the customers, and hours of business, security management, any additional signage or parking concerns. We do have a concern expressed by the police department, who indicate that alcohol consumption by underage patrons of the establishment should be prevented by their approved security management plan. Security management plan would have to be submitted for them to obtain their license, and a copy of that would also come to the planning department. Because it's an allowed use, we have previously allowed on-sale alcohol establishments at this location. None of those businesses were able to get up and running. This is a similar type business. Again, we would like the applicant to address the type of business that it is, the customers that it serves, and security management. Because it's an allowed use, and the applicant will have to provide those considerations before they would be allowed to open for business, staff is recommending approval with 2 conditions. 1, that it's approved for this applicant only, and 2, that a security management plan be updated and approved with the Sioux Falls Police Department and a copy forwarded to the City Planning Office. We've had 1 call for information only. Passerby saw the sign, wondered what was going on, and that concludes staff report.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions for Steve?
Mr. Chair? Steve, I think what I heard you say is that they have to provide a security management plan to the police department.
That's a condition for approval, yes.
As a condition for approval, and the police department has to approve that. That hasn't been done yet.
Not yet.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Steve?
Mr. Chair, Steve, typically in a application like this, is the security management plan gone through with the police and approved before?
We've always recommended that the applicants go and talk to the police department about their security management plan, just so that they can be comfortable they're going to get support from the department before they go any further with their application or go to the council with their application for license. Because we want them to know that we're going to put that condition for approval on each and every one of them.
Thank you.
So, Steve, I think what you're saying, if the police department didn't approve their security management plan, what we do tonight is null and void.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Anything else for Steve? Thank you, Steve. Is the petitioner present?
Hello, my name is Ferris Joseph, and I reside at 516 North Sandberg Drive here in Sioux Falls. And I'm the individual that has worked with the planning department on this, and it was a pleasure working with them. And I also have met with Officer Greg Schmidt on 2 occasions, and he gave me some items of concern that he wanted me to incorporate into the security management plan, and I've done that. So I'm here to answer any questions anybody may have.
Thank you, Ferris. Are there any questions for Ferris?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Joseph, you said that you have met with Officer Schmidt?
I've met with him twice. Neither time was in person, it was over the phone.
And he's asked you to do a couple things, and he's okay with what you've done?
Well, he hasn't seen the security management plan, the final plan yet, but going to be working with them after this is done here.
So, okay, so
But he did give me 4 items that he listed, and I incorporated them into the plan.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Joseph? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else tonight that would like to address this item?
Jim Dunham, Dunham Company, 230 South Phillips Avenue. We are the building owner. We do represent the applicant or endorse the applicant. I guess the only reason I'm here is to probably state 2 things. When Ferris approached me and said that the security management plan needed to be approved by the city, I immediately reached out to Officer Greg Schmidt, who has been on vacation for the last week. I sent him emails and voicemails knowing he got back, I believe, yesterday, and got no return phone calls. So we do know what we have to overcome, and we believe we can meet his parameters, just haven't been unable to get a phone call back to meet with him direct because he was on vacation. Second thing is that Steve said, and I think just slightly incorrect, that there has been an on-sale alcohol license approved here twice. He said that none of them have taken effect. One was Nitwitz Comedy Club. They were there for a period of time, so they actually had one. Second one was an interactive dinner theater that we came to you folks and got it approved. They did not get their business plan together and never did open the location. But we have had it approved twice. One was in operation, I'm going to guess, for a year, 2 years, 3 years, Nitwitz Comedy Club. So I just want to clarify that. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions for Jim?
Mr. Chair, I do remember Officer Schmidt saying he was on vacation, so
Good.
And that's
well, we're not hiding from that
fine.
issue. We
Yeah.
just have been unable to meet in person since we've been trying to contact him.
Understand.
And we did talk to Officer Jim Larson, asking if he would step in, and he just said since Officer Schmidt had made first contact, he would not want to step in now and wait. Said, you know, and we did talk to Steve Randall, who said they can approve it tonight, subject to that, and we still have to deal with that, and we're willing to do that. So.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Jim?
Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Joseph, you were doing real well till our friend Mr. Dunham come up here. No, I have no questions. Hello, Jim.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Jim. Is there anyone else here tonight that would like to address this issue? Seeing none, is there a motion relative to item number 8?
I'd move for approval of item number 8 with 2 stipulations.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval for item number 8, please signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed, same sign. Item number 8 is approved. Item number 9.
Item number 9 is petition number 2010-05-010, a conditional use permit in the C2 General Commercial District to allow off-sale alcohol at 1806 South Minnesota Avenue. The petitioner is Brendan Riley with Davenport, Evans, and Hurwitz and Smith, and he's representing Walgreens Corporation on this item and the following item. As stated, the general location of this item is at 1806 South Minnesota Avenue, or 26th in Minnesota, and the area of the parcel is 1 3/4 acres in size. The existing zoning is C2, General Commercial District, and Walgreens currently has a pharmacy on site. The abutting zoning and land uses to the north is C2, to the south is C2, to the west is C2, and all of those we've given a compatibility rating of 5. To the east is the RS2 residential district with single-family residential, and that's a compatibility rating of 3, which basically tells us that we need to make sure that the applicants are doing what they can to mitigate any potential impacts. Now, the conditional use permit standard for off-sale alcoholic beverages is that the location is compatible with characteristics of surrounding uses and not injurious to surrounding properties, and that number 2, a management plan be approved to address operational issues including employee training and supervision of customers, enforcement of age-restricted product sales, and smoking policy on the premise for establishments within 500 feet of the school. To the southwest, you'll notice that Mark Twain Elementary School, or southeast, excuse me, is Mark Twain Elementary School is there. We did inform the applicants that they need to provide a copy of the petition to the principal at the school, and we received no phone calls or concerns from that person. Now, this application, or this location, has a history before the Planning Commission. In February of 2002, Walgreens applied for a conditional use permit to develop a site greater than an acre. Both the rezoning and conditional use permits for the subject property were approved in the spring of 2002 with the understanding that the petitioner filed a covenant restricting uses to those allowed by the approved conditional use permit, which at that time was the pharmacy itself. Covenants on private property, though, are not enforced or reviewed by the city, so the applicant will need to address whatever restrictions exist currently and what they're doing to remove those. From a city ordinance standpoint, the early approvals did not allow off-sale alcohol, since the site is located within 500 feet of a school, a conditional use permit is required. The applicants held a neighborhood meeting on Tuesday, May 25th, and should be prepared to address the outcome of that discussion. We have not, in our office, received any comments or phone calls from any neighbors concerned about this item. And staff finds that the request for off-sale alcohol to be reasonable as a minor component of larger retail operations, and Walgreens will be required to submit a security management plan to the police department to ensure that underage sales do not occur. So because the application has provided clarity to indicate the location, nature, and extent of the work proposed, and requires a complete plan check by zoning and building services for any modifications on the interior, we are recommending approval of the conditional use permit with two conditions. The first is that a security management plan be approved by the police department, and the second is that this approval is for this applicant only. So that concludes staff report.
Thank you, David. Any questions for David?
Dave, I have a question. Being it's so close to the school, is there, and I'm being new to the Planning Commission, I've noticed it at some of the other places that are close to a school, that is there a stipulation that we can put on there that there's no advertising of their alcoholic beverages?
You certainly can. You can.
Would it be, is it reasonable? Is it a reasonable stipulation?
It's been done in the past with different locations. Immediately coming to mind is the Come and Go at 41st and Sartoma across from Roosevelt High School. They had a stipulation, I believe, that said that no advertising of alcohol or cigarettes were allowed facing the school site, so, okay, or on the exterior of the building. I think that's what it said.
Yeah, none of this would face the school, though. I mean,
no,
I know,
but it is your
facility.
prerogative if you wanted to place a condition on there. I'm sure the applicant could address if they have any concerns with that. But
all right, thank you.
Any other questions for David? Thank you.
One more, I'm sorry. Mr. Chair, David, question. Now, you mentioned about the covenant. Again, this body doesn't...
No, it's just that it was
enforce
something
covenants?
that the applicants at the time had worked out with the neighborhood. So that's why we wanted to ensure that they were meeting with their neighbors. They included in your packets a letter that was sent to all of the neighbors then this time with their mailing addresses that they had sent the letter to, so that just to let the neighbors know, and we haven't received any phone calls, and I believe the applicant has told us that in fact nobody even showed up to the neighborhood meeting, but he can address that. So
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Any more questions for David? Thank you. Is the petitioner present?
Hi, my name's Brendan Riley. I'm a partner at the Davenport Law Firm, 206 West 14th Street, and we do represent Walgreens. As Dave said, I'll just fill in some blanks as far as the process. We did apply for a conditional use permit for this site for the sale of beer and wine. And just a minor clarification, just the way the licenses read, if we actually are successful tonight, the petitioner would only be applying for a malt beverage license. There will not be sale of wine. This came up basically at the end of last week, the way the licenses read. So it's not going to be a packaged off sale. It's just going to be the sale of malt beverages without wine. So we'll clarify the site plan a little bit, where there's an area where they say there's going to be wine sales. There's not. It will only be beer and malt beverage sales. I think that's neither here or there for the property use, but I just thought I wanted to clarify that. As far as filing the conditional use permit, it is, as I understand it, the reason it needs to be applied for is because of the proximity to Mark Twain Elementary. I did personally meet with Principal Mary Peterson at Mark Twain, dropped off a copy of our application. She said she doesn't believe there'd be any issues with this, but if there were, she or somebody from the school district would contact me, which that did not occur. In fact, she mentioned that, I don't want to speak for her, but that Walgreens has been a good neighbor, and she's much less concerned with this application than when they had to deal with the Crown Casino across the street. So that may go a little bit to your question about advertising and signage. Obviously, as representative for the applicant, we would not want to see any of those restrictions as far as signage on the property. And I think, according to my client, the alcohol sales is going to be less than 2% of the, I mean, I think everybody in here is familiar with how Walgreens operates, so it's not going to be a big issue anyway. To continue on, we did provide the planning staff with our application. We provided the site plan, which I believe is up there. Information that we provided to the neighbors, we invited all the neighbors to, not all the neighbors, within a 2-block proximity, we invited the residential neighbors to a neighborhood meeting. With that notice, we also sent information from Walgreens corporate dealing with reintroduction of beer and at the time wine sales, and also a question and answer, about a 4 or 5 page question and answer, which I believe you have in your packets. Surprisingly, I've been through a number of these. Nobody showed up at the neighborhood meeting. The store manager and I met at Caribou Coffee for this particular location, and there wasn't any neighbors that called, and I believe planning staff has informed you that there's been no comments or concerns. We did post signs. Again, to my knowledge, there's been no concerns, and with planning staff's recommendation of approval, I'd request approval as well and be open to any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions for Brendan?
Mr. Chair.
Mike.
Mr. Riley, have you talked to, or has someone talked to Officer Schmidt or the Sioux Falls Police Department regarding a security management plan?
No, we are aware, in the staff recommendations approval, which I received late last week, we are aware of the condition on there for a security site plan. This is one, and we'll talk about the next, but this is one of 6 Walgreens stores in the city. 3 of them already have beer sales and have been through this process, so we're well aware of the condition. We'll accept the approval with that condition. We didn't want to get the cart in front of the horse, so I didn't do anything to contact business, and actually, interesting enough, with Walgreens, the corporate operations, it'd be a different department that applies for the license anyway, but all those conditions will be met, and we're aware of those with the staff approval. And I should mention, in case the question comes up, you did mention on the covenants. I looked today just to make sure. We did a search of the property. We're not aware of any restrictive covenants other than some archaic 1925 deeds that would have placed a restriction on property at the time when it was residential, that there wouldn't be any alcohol sales. I think we're well beyond the 25-year statutory limitation on those. So I'm not aware of any conditions for the property moving forward if we had approval tonight that we'd have to overcome any hurdles for the actual beer sales.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Brendan?
Mr. Chair, Brendan, just kind of curious, you said there were 6 Walgreens in town.
Yep.
Is that right? And 3 have already
Right.
applied and have the license. And you're applying for 2. Is there a reason why the 6th one is not?
Yeah, the 6th one will. We were planning on applying for 3. We worked with city staff. There's a Walgreens out west of town on West 41st Street. There was a question of we would have need to apply for a conditional use permit if it was within 500 feet of the Roosevelt High School school district property. We had a survey done within the past couple of weeks. It's outside of that 500 feet scope. So we provided that information to city planning and basically decided there's no need for a conditional use permit for that property, so we didn't apply for it. I think the question becomes we're waiting to see if these approvals go through, and then I'll apply for all 3 at the same time. So that 3rd property doesn't require a conditional use permit, and we'll go straight to the licensing phase.
So the plan is all 6, if these are
All
approved?
6 will have the similar, similar sales, similar security plans, and as far as I can tell, even similar arrangements of the stores.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Brendan? I guess not. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Is there anyone in the audience tonight that would like to address this item? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll motion for approval on item number 9 with the 2 stipulations.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of item number 9 signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed, same sign. Item number 9 is approved. Staff, that brings us to item number 10.
Again, my name is Dave Loveland, and we are discussing item number 10, which is petition number 2010-05-011. The applicant is also Mr. Riley, representing Walgreens. The purpose of this site is similar in that it is to request the approval of a CUP in order to add off-sale alcohol in an existing store at 2605 West 12th Street. The area on this size is about 1.5 acres in size. To the north is C2. To the east is C2, General Commercial District. To the south is C4, Planned Commercial District, all of which rated a compatibility rating of 5. And to the west is the RC Recreation Conservation District that currently holds Sherman Park with a compatibility rating of 3. Because of the proximity to the Parks Department, we did ask the applicant to notify Parks and Recreation about the application, and we received word that the department has no concerns with this application. Again, the standard is that the location is compatible with characteristics of surrounding uses and that a management plan be provided to address operational issues. As I noted, Sherman Park lies across Kiwanis Avenue to the west, but no concerns were expressed by the Parks Department. The development, and this will help explain the reason for this conditional use application, the development of the existing Walgreens facility was approved by Planning Commission in the fall of 1998. During the approval process, representatives for Walgreens stated for the record that no alcohol would be sold at this location. And because of this statement, staff has requested that Walgreens amend the previous approval to include alcohol, and the applicant has submitted this request for your consideration. The applicants also held a neighborhood meeting on Tuesday, May 25th, and should also be prepared to address the outcome of that meeting My understanding is that no one showed up at that meeting either from the surrounding neighborhood. And we have in our office received no phone calls expressing concern or comments on this application. As was just previously discussed too, I wanted to let you know that there are 6 locations with Walgreens, 3 of which were approved for beer, malt beverage sales last fall by the City Council. I believe it was last fall and winter. And then the 4th location, we were asked for the survey because of its proximity to Roosevelt High School, which was at 41st and Sartoma, and that was outside the scope of the 500 feet. Now these two, 26th and Minnesota, because of its previous history, and then and this one for the same reason, and within the proximity of the 500 feet of the schools. So because this application has provided clarity to indicate the location, nature, and extent of the work proposed, and requires a complete plan check in case any interior remodeling is necessary, we are recommending approval of the application with 2 conditions. One is that a security management plan be approved by the Sioux Falls Police Department, and that this application is approved for this applicant only. And that concludes staff reports.
Thank you, David. Any questions for David? Thank you.
Thank you.
Brendan, would you come up to the podium again?
It's like deja
Unless
vu.
there's something different.
No, there's not. I mean, the only difference would be the plan for the location of the neighborhood meeting, which again, nobody showed up. Everything's the same. I did not personally meet with the Parks Department, but like staff said, we did provide a copy and got no comments.
Any questions for Brendan? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience tonight that would like to address item number 10? Seeing none, is there a motion relative to item number 10?
I'll make a motion to approve item number 10 with the 2 stipulations.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any planning commission discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of item number 10, please signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed, same sign. Item number 10 is approved. Item number 11.
Item number 11 is a final development plan application received from Craven Restaurant and Bar Business for approval to construct a restaurant and bar at the proposed location, which is in Platinum Valley Planned Development District, Subarea A. Subarea A of the Platinum Valley Planned Development District does allow on-sale alcohol. And so we're looking at a final development plan for the construction of a business for that purpose. It is not platted yet. It would have to be platted before it could get a building permit. The proposed plat is as you see in the site plan, which shows property lines aligning with access easements into that sub-area from adjoining streets to the south and to the west. We have in the Platinum Valley PD vacant property to the north. Lewis and Drug is under construction further to the north, and we have a compatibility rating of 4 just because it is a planned development and we want to take a look at the compatibility of those projects within the PD. To the south, it's zoned RS2 and RD residential with single-family residences, and therefore compatibility rating of 3. To the east and to the west, it's compatibility ratings of 4 for vacant land in the PD, and also RA1 multifamily residential apartments to the west. The potential compatibility rating of 3, potential incompatibility rating 3, the proposed use may have potential conflicts with existing adjacent uses which may be remedied or minimized through project design. Traffic, parking, and other external effects should be directed away from lower intensity uses. Landscaping, buffering, and screening should be employed to minimize negative effects. And that's a quote out of the comprehensive plan, the Shape Sioux Falls, and we are trying to work into that kind of a situation as much as possible now in dealing with compatibility issues. If you look in Subarea A of the Subarea regulations which apply, it also indicates an access plan for this subarea be submitted concurrent with the first final development plan submittal. and we do have that access plan indicated on the proposed submittal. The developer should also provide an adequate buffer between commercial and residential uses, and the developer will utilize, where possible, pedestrian paths or walkways to provide access between residential and commercial subareas or uses. The Craven Restaurant and Bar plans indicate a main bar, dining area, and casino bar with video lottery machines, pool tables, and kitchen inside the building, and a patio bar with table seating outside the building. The sample menu indicates appetizers, soups and salads, burgers and sandwiches, basket foods, wings and pizza, and carry-out available. The applicant has provided a written business plan which indicates hours of operation between 11 a.m. and 2 a.m. in the morning. The casino will be open at 7 a.m. Craven will be open Monday through Sunday, and the restaurant will be closed on Memorial Day, Easter, and Christmas. With that being said, the site plan indicates a location of a building towards the middle of the property, parking on both sides. The minimum required setback being provided on the street frontage of 15 feet. Landscaping has trees located in the setback, and other additional landscaping provided to the interior of the site. Other than that, the building appearance is compatible with other commercial development. It's not a pitched roof design, but it is permanent architectural design that we've found to be compatible with adjacent residential development in other parts of the city. There are no proximities to parks, open space, and schools to consider, and the physical property is cleared and ready for construction. The landscaping plan, as proposed, indicates 23 maple trees are approved equal, spaced approximately 50 feet on center in the front yards and along driveways. There is a patio area on the north side of the building away from the residential uses. However, the parking lots share access to the street with those residential uses. Signage plan is not provided, lighting plan is not provided, and both would have to meet the requirements of the underlying zoning district and that planned development district. We have no comments from police, traffic, sanitary, sewer, drainage, engineering, fire, and water. Planning does offer the following comments: that consideration should be given to the possible need to mitigate traffic, lighting, signage, trash, odor, and noise effects on nearby residential areas. The applicant has indicated a willingness to do so and has submitted a revised plan, which I believe is on the overhead now. The revised plan indicates beefing up the landscaping within that 15-foot setback with a berm and additional trees. The applicant should be prepared to indicate that they are providing adequate screening as required by ordinance for parking against residential uses. That's a effective 4-foot-high solid screening material, whether it's a fence or a combination of berms and shrubs, to provide that screening. Sub-area regulations are being met as indicated by the plan. An indication of pedestrian access to the site is not indicated. We would probably want to try to make that possible. If it's a residential or family-friendly establishment, then residential family pedestrian access should be provided from the neighborhood. At the time of this report, staff has received neighborhood concerns about the use of the facility within the neighborhood. And that's included in the addendum material that was given to you. Staff received that here just today. Excuse me, yesterday. Okay. That indicated, and I believe the people are present here who provided that letter to you with additional information. They should be prepared to indicate what impacts the proposed use is having on their neighborhood that could be mitigated in other ways. The use of the establishment for on-sale alcohol is allowed. It's under what conditions is it allowed? Because the application is allowed in the PD and requires a complete plan check by zoning and building services for a building permit and otherwise conforms to PD sub-area regulations, staff is recommending approval of the final development plan subject to the following condition. and develop a sidewalk connection from the right-of-way sidewalk to the building entrance. And that concludes staff report.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions for Steve?
Mr. Chair, Steve, I just have a question on the outside seating or the patio on the west side. Is there a city ordinance on music and how loud or hours that can be played in that setting?
There is no ordinance that directly addresses the use of outdoor space for this type of business. The noise ordinance does come into play, though, for that situation. And as you know, in the downtown area, we've had to deal with that. And there are precedents in other similar establishments on 41st Street where residential uses came up against the backside of a restaurant that proposed an outdoor patio use. And there were restrictions put on the hours of that use. So there are things that you can do to mitigate the impact if you feel there is an impact from that, such as noise or use, by limiting hours, by screening, by other types of noise control, keeping the noise levels down, whatever it is you would like to put on there. I think the petitioner should be ready to address that with you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Mike?
Mr. Chair, Steve, I want to verify, Dave, can you back one more? That to the left, as I'm looking at it, is north. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So the outdoor patio seating does faces the opposite direction of the homes to the south.
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you for pointing that out. I was confused.
And one more, Steve. As we went through these other petitions throughout tonight, each one involving the sale of alcohol, all required a security management plan. This does not. Is that correct?
What we're not approving the on-sale alcohol use this evening, just the final development plan for that type of business.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Steve? Thank you, Steve. Before I call the petitioner up, I was remiss before we started item number 6 in not reminding everyone that we'd like you to hold your comments to 5 minutes each, if at all possible. So with that, is the petitioner here this evening?
Hi, my name's Mark Fonder, 27227 472nd Avenue. And in regards to our bar restaurant, I guess, we sent out 546 invites from qualified pre-sort, 2-block radius, rented a room at Homewood Suites to have a meeting May 25th. We showed them our floor plans, our menu, answered all their questions and some of their concerns. Most of the neighbors were just curious, and some weren't concerned about noise, lighting, landscaping. So we tried to address them as best we could, and I think we answered most of their questions.
Anything else, Mark? Okay. Are there any questions for Mark? Mike?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Fodder, when you came away from that meeting, what was the sense of the people that came to the meeting? How many people did come to the meeting of those 500 plus invites?
We had about 30. 22 actually signed in, and like I said, most everyone I thought was in support. The residential to the south, the closest neighbor, he was in support because he realized that it was approved for a liquor restaurant. So.
In the general feel of the majority of the 25, or of the 22 that signed in, general feel, you were able to answer their questions and they went away with at least the information that they were looking for?
Yeah, I think so. We were there probably an hour, just answering them one-on-one, So.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mark? I guess not. Thank you, Mark. Is there anyone else in the audience tonight that would like to address item number 11?
Hi, my name's Craig Rickert, 3130 West 57th Street, Suite 109. I represent the landowners, and I just wanted to say when we received this application, the three landowners that have this property were concerned about what was going to happen to the value of their property. I want to say that Mark and Katie have a establishment in Brandon. It's called 212. And I went over there representing my landowners to see what kind of establishment it was. I hadn't been there before. But this is a smoke-free facility. I checked out the food. The food was good. And there were a lot of families that were coming into this place. Additionally, I went and checked out the bathrooms. And anyway, my point is that I think they do a very good job with what the establishments they've had. This will be the third one that they've had, and I think this will be the third one that's non-smoking. The group that we had, the neighborhood, when they came in, they had a lot of good questions, and I came away with a good sense that they had found some new customers for their establishment. They have worked in trying to get answer some of their questions. Some of it was concerning, they even talked about stop signs, landscaping, noise, and that type of thing. But and obviously this is my opinion, but they seem to address most of those questions. So. That's it.
Any questions for Craig?
Mr. Chair?
Kenny?
Craig, you're saying that you're representing some of the neighbors.
I'm saying I'm representing the people that own the land. They will sell a portion of their land to these folks. Okay?
All right.
So there's 14 acres there. This will be the first piece that is built on there. And the three owners were real concerned that you're starting the development correctly. And once we saw what their plans were, the design of their building, the type of establishment it was, we thought that it would actually bring value to the property because it's not it was in our eyes, was a family restaurant.
Thank you.
So.
Any other questions for Craig? Thank you, Craig.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience tonight that would like to address this item? Come forward, please.
Chris Dielman. I live on 6709 South County. I attended the meeting that they had with the residents. We got about a week's forenotice about that. Going away from that, I feel, and my wife also feels, that we were misled by them, and they weren't completely truthful. The reason for this, they kept on relaying back to their other restaurant, bar called Boiling Point in Brandon, encouraged us to check it out. And my wife and I did. They said directly behind that restaurant bar that they have, that it was residential. What we found behind it, storage units. So it's not as close to the residential area. If you have the map, the actual directly across from it is a house with kids. Right next to it as well. The neighborhood that we live in is very young families. We're all just starting out. My wife and I specifically bought our house because we want to start a family in that area, and we feel that being open till 2 a.m. in the morning is pretty ridiculous, where you need to get sleep, everyone works. We can't have people coming in loud motorcycles like at Boiling Point they did, many motorcycles in the parking lot. They make a lot of noise. They can keep you up at night. You can get some rowdy people. I used to do my fair of drinking, and people get rowdy. Also, they were pitching it to us as very family friendly. I don't know if in the addendum is the picture on there as well.
It is.
They hung up a sign saying that no kids are allowed after 5 without adult supervision, and then after 9, no kids allowed at all. Adult only time. That doesn't sound very family friendly to me. So basically what we ask, it's fine if they want to have a restaurant and business that's family friendly, but actually make it family friendly then. And they kept on relaying us back to Boiling Point, and we don't believe that's very family friendly.
Anything else, Chris?
No.
Any questions for Chris?
Chris, how long have you lived there?
I've lived there since October. Just purchased it. Knew there was commercial zoning there. Did not expect a bar open till 2 a.m. there.
Yeah, this is a unique situation when they've got the zoning. They've been warehousing the ground for some time, and now it's time to kind of fill it in. And
Right, with the bar open till 2 a.m.
I know.
Applebee's is known as the neighborhood family-friendly restaurant and bar. Their hours of operation on weekends till 12 a.m. and weekdays 11 p.m. That seems a little more reasonable to me.
Thank you, Craig.
Any other questions for Chris? Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else in the audience tonight that would like to address this item?
I'm David Cull, 408 Sunday Drive, Brandon, South Dakota. I'm also the police chief. I was asked by Mark and Katie to appear tonight and to address any questions that you might have about the boiling point. During our time there, I checked the past year call history for the address, which is 328 South Split Rock, and I came up with from June 1st of last year to June 1st of this year, there were a total of 10 calls associated with that address. In reviewing the calls history, there were 2 that were probably attached directly to the boiling point. Disorderly conducts, one was resolved without much of an issue. Second one was resolved with an arrest, and we were contacted by the bar when they were having problems. It's been my experience that we've had a very good relationship with the proprietors of the bar and grill, I should say, and been very, very few issues. As far as the, I'm not sure what day that they were at the restaurant. They talked about the motorcycles. Was it this past? I can't remember what day. There was a day here recently that they had a poker run for fundraiser for the Humane Society, and we had a lot of motorcycles coming through town. I can't remember what day that was, but that might be associated. I haven't seen a lot of motorcycles gathered at that establishment on a regular basis, but we do have poker runs that do come through town from time to time, and that's when we get an overabundance. So I'm willing to answer any questions that you may have in regards to the police.
Any questions for Dave?
David, I think it's very nice of you to come in on their behalf and speak to us. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Call,
Yes.
you said there were 2 calls to that residence that are essentially attributed to that the boiling point. That was over what kind of time period?
I checked for the past year. I went back 1 year from June 1st.
Okay.
And pulled that up. 10 calls to the address, but many of those were, parking lot type issues, and that parking lot does serve a number of other businesses that are associated with the property.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dave? Thank you. Anyone else wish to address this issue?
I'm the other half. Katie Fonder. Mark gets a little nervous, so I'll apologize. I also live at 27227 472nd Avenue. We're really excited about Craven. The overall neighborhood meeting, I think, went fairly well. Referring to the 212, we do have a great family-friendly atmosphere. We have kids in till 9, but we like to have them supervised because there are adults there that are having, an alcoholic beverage, and we prefer that they have some accompaniment to be safe and everything else. As far as the patio, the only noise that we would have is obviously the conversations that are out there and maybe some light background music. We definitely want to be great neighbors. We're not in this to have Dave or anybody else from the Sioux Falls Police Department. We just want to run a restaurant and have some bar atmosphere as well. And as far as our hours, those are in, lingo depending on what our business does. 2 o'clock seems to work well for us. You get a few casino players and the random few patrons that come in, but overall most of our clientele dies by about 9 or 10 o'clock. We have been in, I know you're concerned with Greg Schmidt, we have been in contact with him. We opened Stubby's Bar and Grill on 57th and Cliff 2 years ago, or 3 years ago now, and we had worked with him prior, so he basically just said that after this meeting to address him if need be.
Anything else? No. Any questions for Katie? Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll close testimony related to item 11, and I would entertain a motion relative to item 11.
I'll make a motion to approve item number 11 with the possibility of the developing a sidewalk connection is stipulated in the first stipulation.
Okay. Do we have a motion? Is there a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any commission discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed, same sign. Item number 11 is approved. David, are you number 12?
I am. The item number 12 is petition number 2010-05-05. It is a final development plan in subarea A of the Pettigrew Heights, and that should say Pettigrew Heights 11th and Duluth Planned Development District to construct a mixed-use residential apartment building. The applicant's requesting approval in order to construct the multifamily residential apartments and commercial uses on the first floor. The location of this facility is at 517 West 11th Street, and the area in question is 1.3 acres. To the north is the C2 General Commercial District with multifamily residential uses. To the south is RA2 Residential with multifamily residential uses. To the east is C2 General Commercial District with multifamily residential uses, and to the west is also C2 with the multi-tenant commercial. All of the surrounding land uses warrant a compatibility rating of 4, which basically means that there is minor conflict potential, and the site design should be utilized to address any of that. You may remember it was only several months ago that the zoning came before you. The Pettigrew Heights 11th and Duluth Planned Development District was approved by the Planning Commission in January of 2010 and by the City Council in February of 2010. This district was created to provide a unique mixed-use project with 2 goals. The first is to provide affordable living units for the elderly, and the second is to develop a project that can bring needed commercial and office uses into the Pettigrew Heights neighborhood, thereby assisting in the neighborhood's revitalization. You'll note that I've attached the sub-area regulations that were approved into your staff report, and the uses that would be allowed as part of the commercial has been specifically delineated and do not include anything like an on-sale or off-sale alcohol establishment. The one of the things I also wanted to mention was that parking, and this was a point of discussion I remember during the zoning process. Parking for residential units shall be calculated at a required rate of 0.75 spaces per unit, and the parking for commercial and office uses shall be calculated at a required rate of 1 parking stall per 250 feet. And that meets the zoning ordinance for elderly parking for residential, elderly housing projects. So other regulations included in those sub-area regulations include outside storage of mechanical equipment, materials, trash, and similar shall be screened from adjacent properties. All screening shall be constructed of materials identical to that of the main building. Service and space of building service, loading docks, garbage, and utilities shall be located and screened with an opaque wall compatible with siding materials as the structure. Site lighting shall be designed to provide minimal impact to surrounding properties, and ash trees shall be limited to comprise no more than 10% of the required tree planting total. It is our belief that those have all been met. With the applicants are proposing a 4-story mixed-use building, as I stated earlier, with commercial and office uses on the first floor and residential uses on the second, third, and fourth floor. The building is designed with a contemporary urban style and has enhanced the use of color, window styles, and exterior finishes to create a unique presence in the neighborhood. The applicants are proposing a total of 20 deciduous canopy trees. As noted in the sub-area regulations, ash trees shall comprise no more than 10% of those, but no specific delineation of the trees were provided with the plans, and the applicant should be prepared to consult with the forestry department to determine trees most suitable for the site. It is a tight site, and they should take that into consideration when selecting the species of trees. For our analysis, the subject parcel is located in Pettigrew Heights, which has been designated as a redevelopment area in the Shape Sioux Falls 2035 land use plan. The comprehensive plan identifies neighborhood conservation areas and outlines several strategies to preserve and redevelop certain core areas of the city. One of the goals is to work with various agencies or nonprofit groups to assist in affordable housing, redevelopment, neighborhood security and conservation, and increase the general livability of the neighborhood. The project conforms to the vision and goals laid out in the Shape Sioux Falls 2035 plan. At the site itself, the City of Sioux Falls acquired the subject property in September and October of 2008 after issuing a request for proposal for the redevelopment of the site earlier that year. The city received one response to the RFP, a proposal submitted by St. Joseph Catholic Housing. This proposal was subsequently awarded the project contingent upon the ability of the proposer to secure funding from the South Dakota Housing and Development Authority. This funding, in the form of home funds, NSP funds, and low-income housing tax credits, was secured in April of 2010. One other item to note is that an alley on site will need to be vacated, and that the application for vacation has been submitted to the Public Works Department and will be considered for approval tentatively at the July 12th, 2010 meeting of the City Council. So because the subject application requires a complete plan check by Zoning and Building Services for building permit and otherwise conforms to PD sub-area regulations, we are recommending approval of the final development plan subject to just one condition, and that's the trash enclosure shall be constructed of materials similar to those used on the main building. And that concludes staff report.
Thank you, David. Any questions for staff?
Mr. Chair, David, the lot currently has homes on it?
No, those homes have been torn down.
Thank you.
I think it has railings and steps.
Yeah, that might be all that's left on there. So.
Any other questions for David? Thank you. Is the petitioner here this evening? No one from Missouri.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Damian Grebel. I'm with Earhart Griffin and Associates, 300 North Dakota, Suite 114, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, 57104. I am a representative of St. Joseph Catholic Housing. Ms. Joan Franklin is also here as a representative of St. Joseph's Catholic Housing. We met with the surrounding property owners at a neighborhood meeting. We held that meeting on May 19th. we were invited by city staff to hold that meeting at the Pettigrew Heights monthly Neighborhood Conservation Area Committee meeting. There were approximately 26 attendees at that meeting. I believe the general feeling for this project, everyone was excited for the project. There were questions about the uses of the commercial on the first floor of this project, but again, what is before you is the final development plan. The C4 commercial uses have already been approved with the PD, so as far as any questions to the actual final development plan, I don't feel like there were any concerns on that. We also met with the property owner to the southwest of this property. We did meet him in the field. He was excited for the project as well. Obviously, he has a rental house there, so he was concerned about how certain things, construction, may impact his property. And as well, we want to be good neighbors during the construction project and keep everybody safe during the construction of this project. Other than that, we do not have any objections to staff's recommendations, and we do appreciate the motion or the recommendation for approval, and we would appreciate a move to approve.
Thank you. Any questions for Damien?
There's a lot of questions here, Mr. Chairperson.
Do you have
No,
one?
just one, Damien. Have you did the engineering there? Is that to grade?
No, there's, I think, about 10 to 12 feet of grade difference from Duluth to Spring. So the grade work has not been completed, but we're going to take care of that with some architectural elements, with some steps in the building as well. So.
Okay.
Any other questions for Damien? Guess not. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience tonight that would like to address item number 12? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion relative to item 12.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve item number 12 with the one stipulation.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any commission discussion?
I know this project has been a long time coming from the, getting the houses vacated and cleared from the site, and the request for proposals, and I think it'll be a great addition to the neighborhood, and I'd like to thank Damien and Joan for continuing to keep pushing this forward, because I know it had some obstacles along the way. So I think the neighbors will be better served in the Pettigrew Heights neighborhood, as well as the business owners. So I think it looks to be an exciting project, and it'll be fun to watch it go up.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of item number 12 signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed, same sign. Item number 12 is approved. And I believe the last item tonight is item 13. That's yours, Steve?
That's correct. Item 13 is an application for a final development plan for a government office building. It's located in sub-area B of the 57th Street West Planned Development District. The proposing, requesting your approval to approve a final development plan for an office building for the Social Security Administration. It's located on a 1.7 acre site, which is currently vacant, and they provided us with site plan, floor plan, building elevations, and a landscaping plan. Compatibility rating of 4 assigned to the north, because in this PD we do allow residential development in that area between this building and West 57th Street. There is one house there now. I believe it has not been incorporated into any final development plan that I know of for residential redevelopment of the property, but in order to take that into consideration, we did give it a compatibility rating of 4. In looking at the sub-area B regulations, other regulations that would address street trees being planted at 40-foot intervals along 57th and coinciding with completion of sub-area B, so that is yet to take place. And residential uses are limited to those properties within the PD with 57th Street frontage. So we won't have any other residential concerns to deal with other than screening of parking lots to the north. There is full access to South Nevada Avenue. There are no proximities considered for parks, open space, and schools. Setbacks required are provided for the subject property. In the application, we did have some concern about possible minor amendment to allow encroachment of parking lot into the required side yard setback. The applicant has provided a revised site plan, and we do have that plan in the presentation tonight. I did not get it to you in your addendum packet. So we'll have to look at that on the screen. We'll put it up on the overhead if necessary, and the applicant can come forward and address that with you. The landscaping plan is providing a variety of types of landscaping that appear to relate not only to the building and parking, but also to the BMP that's provided for stormwater detention, or retention on the property. The grasslands, different types of grasses that can be mowed or not mowed, things that can grow up with native grasses, all seem to add to the quality of the site environment. A lighting plan is not submitted, but would have to conform to requirements of the ordinance, as well as the signage plan, which has not been submitted. The trash enclosure at the northwest corner of the property is indicated to be materials similar in construction to the building, and it does meet the setback requirements. At first, we didn't think it did, but it does, and we can show that in the revised plan submittal. As far as planning, the fire department was concerned about a turnaround for their fire access. The revised plan now shows a fire lane around the south side of the building, running along the side yard setback. We do allow traffic or traffic movements in the side yard. We do not allow parking in the side yard. So they were able to take advantage of that and meet that requirement of the fire department for a fire lane. We would ask, and we did ask, for development of a sidewalk connection to the right-of-way sidewalk and to the entrance of the building. They have provided that. The next slide will indicate how that sidewalk is being provided from public sidewalk across the parking lot to the entrance of the building. And to the south side, it also shows that they are out of the side yard setback with their required parking. I believe that all of the concerns that staff had on the original submittal of the site plan have been addressed, and there's no further need for the minor amendment. We're recommending approval of the final development plan. We would not need that stipulation for a sidewalk connection because it has been provided in the plan. We've had no calls on this, and that concludes staff report.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions for staff? Thank you. Is the petitioner here this evening?
Good evening. My name's Aaron Holgren with Legacy Real Estate and Development, 101 South Main, Suite 400 here in Sioux Falls. This building, we started working with the Social Security Administration over 2.5 years ago, and it's evolved quite a bit. Some of the setback requirements from the federal government and the Homeland Security have increased the building setbacks from 25 feet to 50 feet, constraining some of our outer setbacks with the city requirements. Other comment would be the residential home to the northwest is listed with my firm, and the current property owners have the intent to sell it and get it rezoned for a commercial use at that time. And all of the surrounding land other than that of which to the east and south is planned for commercial use, and the current property owners have been very favorable with this plan that we've put forth. So.
Any question? It's Aaron?
Yep, correct.
Any questions for Aaron? I guess not. Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience tonight that would like to address this issue? Somehow I knew that you weren't just here to enjoy the conversation.
Yeah, I don't normally attend these meetings just to see what's going on. I kind of have a little finger on the pulse most of the time. I'm Ray Pearson with Sayer Associates. I represent the owner and also the architect. 216 South Duluth in Sioux Falls is our address. Just a couple things I wanted to point out. It does say that it's a retention pond on the site plan, but it will not be retention. We will not be retaining any water there, hopefully. It's just going to be a detention pond that'll detain the water for a time so that it can surpass the flooding and all those city requirements for BMPs and so forth. The other thing is that it's listed on here as Tolling Hill subdivision. That was an error in our legal description. It's actually Rolling Hills subdivision. And I guess the only other question that I had is kind of for my own benefit for any future projects that might be similar, is the requirement for the pedestrian access off of the sidewalk, because I don't see many people in a commercial area like this accessing off of the sidewalk onto the property. Maybe it's just for use only for the employees to walk during the day. I don't know what the requirement is, but I'd like to just...
Yeah, it's been, as I recall, something the planning staff has been looking at. I think it both serves the employees, but it also would serve those people that might park on the street and walk into the various businesses.
I see.
So I think that's the intent.
Yeah, I think they have plenty of parking there, so I would hope that nobody be parking on the street. I don't think they're going to be anybody knocking down the door trying to get into the Social Security building. But anyway, just those are my comments. If you got any questions for me.
Thank you. Any questions for Ray?
Ray, it's a nice looking development. Is this the last piece of the puzzle? Are you guys ready to go ahead and
Yeah, they
get a
would like to
permit,
start
get
construction
started?
as soon as possible. We are, currently ready with plans for construction. The fire lane is now going to be just a little bit of revision that we need to do, but they're ready to be submitted for approval from engineering staff.
Good deal.
Any other questions for Ray? Thank you. Is there anyone else here tonight that would like to address item 13? Seeing none, is there a motion relative to item 13?
Mr. Chair, I move we approve item 13. And as I understand it, we do not need the stipulation number 1. So move as with just the recommended
Just approval of the final development plan. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of item number 13 signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed, same sign. Item number 13 is approved. I don't see an item 14, but I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
I talked a lot. I like that.
Zoning's already there.
They don't work.